Today we are honored to welcome Lena Livinsky to the show today. I'm very excited to have her on. She talks about many topics in terms of keeping our kids healthy, which is so important. It's the foundation of our future. She's a holistic feeding nurse and basically understanding how to work within the problems in our own home to cultivate wellness, right? Because a lot of times we get frustrated at things and we don't actually get results, right? But actually having someone on who knows how to get results and getting to the root of the issue is so important, and just kind of incorporating these insights within our lives is so valuable. So I'm very happy to have her on the show today. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So I'm very curious to hear your story and how you got into wellness and how you're doing everything to serve people today.
Yeah, so I'm a speech language pathologist by trade, and I've worked with picky eaters and kids with feeding issues for over 13 years now. But it really was very much the schooling I got in school or at what I learned at work was very behaviorally based. And this is typically what we see with most feeding therapy, just because of the model that's being used. A lot of it is behaviorally based, meaning we want to change the child's behavior around food, right? Because oftentimes kids are picky. So what you see is maybe they're going to reject certain foods. Maybe they're only going to like just a handful of foods. Maybe they're going to do well with one group of foods versus another. So what we want is we want to broaden their diet, and we want to get them to eat more, right? So we have this like behavioral type of therapy where we introduce them to foods, we make it fun, and we try to get them to eat more different things and try different things. And I did that for years. But then I became a mom, and I had my son who was picky, and none of what I actually learned in school or what I practiced worked. None of it. None of it. It was just a miserable fail. So I started questioning things, right? So I could even tell you exactly kind of like when it all hit me. It like started in my kitchen. I almost like a moment I'm never gonna forget. So my son was sitting in his high chair, his little legs were just dangling, and I had just placed a place of food in front of him, something I made with just so much thought and care, thinking he's gonna love this, it's gonna be great. But the second he looked at it, his whole body tensed up. So I saw fear in his eyes, his shoulders tightened, his face changed, and all I wanted to do was scream. Because I was exhausted. I was a mom. He wasn't sleeping well. There was a lot of pressure to get it right, and of course, I want my child to eat and be healthy. And here he was, terrified of the food, and I had just lovingly prepared for him, and maybe even terrified of my reaction. And I could feel the explosion rising inside of me. But also, I was just so heartbroken because I wasn't just a mom. I was, like I said, a pediatric speech language pathologist with advanced feeding training, and I should have known how to help him, and nothing was working. So that moment just cracked something wide open in me, because at the same time, I was deep in my own healing, unraveling years of autoimmune issues, postpartum depression, and total burnout. So I was very holistically oriented when it came to health, and I did a ton of research, and I was learning so much. And I started to see that what no one really has taught me along the way, picky eating isn't just about behavior, it's about biology. It's about nervous system safety, it's about the microbiome, it's about so many different things no sticker chart or really no one bite rule is ever going to fix. So that's when I created what eventually became the Bloom framework, which is my framework, a whole child biology informed way to finally understand what's driving picky eating and begin to heal it from the root. So once I saw the difference it made in my family, I knew I had to share it, and I have since helped a lot of clients with this approach go from really stressed to curious eaters.
Yeah, it's a great story. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, it
Uh,
sounds like
yeah.
so many times like we learn all these things, and so many times in the real world this does not work, and we have to seek alternative solutions, which is exactly what you've done, it sounds like.
Oh, definitely. I feel like I've looked at alternative solutions for a majority of my life. So I've had psoriasis, which is an autoimmune disease from when I was about 8 years old. But along the way, I had developed so many other symptoms that were always driving some kind of health issues in me. things from like obesity and like not being able to lose weight and hormonal issues and chronic fatigue and all these different things. So along the way, as I was searching for answers for me and I was learning from these beautiful providers, things started to click once I had my son, because I'm like, it's all connected. It's all connected. It's not only about, finding the solutions when you're older. How about we start to prevent disease in our little ones once they're starting to show us some symptoms, such as picky eating, that something's off and we need to address.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in your mind, like, what is the cause of that? Like, what is basically the underlying cause, and what is some common issues that you see that arise with that?
Yeah, so it's very different for every child. But what I like to look at within how I evaluate kids is really looking at a few things. Looking at their biology, right? If there's any kind of medical issues going on, any type of medical diagnoses. It could be even things like constipation. It could be things like reflux that are driving aversions towards food. It could be nutritional deficiencies, right? Kids, picky eaters, are notoriously low in zinc. A lot of them have magnesium deficiencies, iron deficiencies, many different deficiencies that are just driving these types of food preferences. So looking at these like biological markers is really helpful when it comes to picky eaters. Another thing is the gut-brain connection, right? The gut-brain connection, I feel like we're just in the infancy stages of understanding it really and how it drives our health and how it drives disease. But there's definitely connections there because the gut and the brain comes to communicate together, and they send our brain signals, things like appetite regulation, right? Like if our gut is really off balance, might send signals to the brain like, oh, I'm not hungry, or I'm not hungry for this. I don't want that. Feeling satiated, things like that. There's so many different signals that it sends us, and also it really stimulates our cravings. Because if we have a lot of overgrowth in our gut and we have gut dysbiosis or a leaky gut, oftentimes that's a sign that we have an overgrowth of the bad bacteria within our body, within our gut, and we don't physically eat our food. The bacteria in our gut eats our food, right? That's what digests our food. So if we have an overgrowth of the bad bacteria, their cravings are, a lot of carbs, a lot of sugars, because this is what sustains them. This is what helps them survive. So oftentimes these types of issues within the gut will drive picky eating because of it, because we're going to naturally have these cravings. Oral motor skills, right? We need to be able to chew our food well. We need to have strength within our jaw. We need to be able to manipulate the food within our mouth to make it into a little bowl called a bolus so that we can actually swallow it, and so on. And some kids have issues with that. And that can be structural, that could be strength driven, that could be sensory driven, because they might have some sensory deficiencies where they're too sensitive to some things. Maybe they're undersensitive to other things, and that could be driving some of these oral motor issues. Or it could be swallowing issues, right? The mechanics of actual swallowing. So if a child is aspirating or if they're having swallowing issues along the way, that could be causing them to cough or feel some kind of discomfort, or they might be getting sick from the food not ending up where it needs to go. So these things can also be driving some picky eating, because kids are so intelligent. They know, like, no, this is what's making me sick. Like, this is what's making me feel uncomfortable, so I'm not going to have that. So those are some of the underlying reasons. Oftentimes, too, lack of boundaries, right? Kids they really thrive on routine. They thrive on boundaries around the dinner table and around what we're doing with food. A lot of kids are over snacking. They're just snacking away all day because that's what they're craving, and then they're not hungry for dinner. So setting boundaries around these things so we can actually help their appetite to grow for dinner and for real meals is really important, as well as different rules around the table. And then open exploration. I think oftentimes what happens is kids, sometimes they get tricked into taking bites. because parents are desperate, and I get it. They might get tricked into eating. Um, they might get forced into it. They might get yelled at. So I think allowing them the time to explore in a very safe way is very important. And then one thing that I didn't mention, and I do think this is at the root of a lot of things, is connection and nervous system regulation. Like if a child is feeling unsafe, they're not going to be eating. That is a very invasive thing, right? Like you're putting things in your mouth, you're literally putting things in your body. If they're stressed out, like it's probably not the best time to introduce new foods or give them foods you know they're not going to do great with. So regulating with them and connecting with them and trying to help their body to feel safe and just good enough to eat. I think that's really important. So I know I said a lot of things, but I hope that you got your answer in there somewhere.
Absolutely, yeah. Makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like there's always like some type of underlying issue, like you mentioned, maybe certain deficiencies, maybe the microbiome, like certain things. And what comes to mind is like we're designed to eat real food, right? Like it's like we've always done. So it's like there's maybe some type of imbalance or some type of maybe stress, like you mentioned, that could be in the way of that. So just kind of, I'm sure it's going to depend on the situation, is having that awareness so we can actually navigate within that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really the first step to helping our picky eaters. Oftentimes it's a caregiver. A lot of times it's a mom, and just like observing and connecting and seeing, like, kind of like putting the dots together to see like, oh, wait, every time they have, I don't know, fish, they seem upset. Maybe they have an allergy or something. It could be a lot of different things driving, but really observing your child and connecting with them and noticing some patterns can give you a lot of answers around picky eating.
Absolutely. Also, I would imagine like it starts with being a model, right? Like if we're not like eating the way that we want them to, I mean, we should probably start with ourselves in a sense, right? Like being the model in the life for what's possible, like eating real food. Is that something that I have right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Kids learn through modeling a lot. And that's for many different areas of development. Speaking, they learn the symbolism of language that way, as well as eating. They watch us all the time. Like, why is it that mom can have the cookies when I can't? Or why is it that I have to eat my broccoli where mom didn't have broccoli on her table? So I do, or her plate. I think that it's important to be the right type of model for the type of eater we want our kids to be. I do.
Yeah, absolutely. So being the model, and then because it's like they more so do what we do instead of do what we say. Is that right?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Yes, you learn that the hard way once you have kids. It's like yeah, they don't listen, but they pick up on what you're doing so much. Like they pick up on the energy in the house. They pick up on the dynamics. They pick up on our little things and little sayings that we have. Oftentimes, my son, as he was developing language, he's 4 now. Like he would start saying these little phrases, and then I realized like I say these things. So he's saying these exact words because that's what I say a lot, and I didn't realize it before. But until he started to say them, and I'm like, right, I do say that a lot. It's like it's interesting what they learn. They're
Yeah,
always
I mean,
watching. They're always learning.
that's the power that we had, like to actually create real change. That's why we have to like focus on becoming the greatest versions of ourselves, really, like because we're modeling that in everything that we do. So just like I think that can be a great inspiration as well. It's like, hey, how can I get better? How can I upgrade my character? Things like that. I think that can be a great inspiration. That really matters too.
Oh, it really does. It really does. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So when it comes to gut health, how does that play a role in all this? I would imagine that's really important, knowing the importance of the microbiome and everything like that.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I think it's one of the biggest drivers in this and in our health in general. As we're learning, there's so many different microbiomes we have within our body, like different, like the microbiome of the skin and the microbiome of the eyes and the microbiome of the brain and the microbiome of the gut. There's just so many different ones, and they all have their little like environments within them. So whenever something is off, our body should be in harmony. Whenever something is off, then that's going to manifest in different symptoms within our bodies. And one of these symptoms could be picky eating. Yeah.
Definitely. Like, is there anything that we should be watching out for? Like, maybe if we're experiencing that, what like type of gut issues could we be experiencing if symptoms like that are arising?
Yeah, so I'm definitely not a gut expert, but I'm learning a ton. I don't know if you've heard of Mary Reddick.
I don't think so.
She's, oh my gosh, she's so phenomenal. I'm like such a geek when it comes to her stuff. Every time her podcast comes out, I'm like, oh my God, let me take notes. It's so great. But she studies it at like a lot. And she's a person who has traveled the globe and has interacted with countless untouched tribes who have this ancestral way of living. So she has a lot of interesting research when it comes to the gut microbiome and everything else. But it seems like a lot of issues come from us not having birth microbes, or maybe our birth microbes are not thriving. And we have an overgrowth of different types of microbes that are pathogenic, right? So these are the microbes, these are things like viruses or other different pathogens or bad bacteria that are kind of causing this leaky gut within our system on different types of levels of digestion, on the mucosal level as well. So when things are not digesting well and things are not properly functioning because we have an overgrowth of these bacteria, and then our birth microbes, which are really the ones we get when we're born naturally, as we go through the birth canal, where we have about, I think, 200 different microbes that we inherit from the mom. And these are the microbes that really bring on a lot of health and a lot of different, and they're very beneficial to our health in general. So whenever these are starved out or they're really not properly taken care of for many different reasons, it could be the toxicity that we're living with, it could be antibiotics, it could be a lot of different things that are just very harmful to the gut. You know, once they're not thriving, they're not doing their job to help us stay healthy. So we will then see these overgrowths. And that's when we have different symptoms of disease happen within
Definitely,
our
that makes
bodies.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. You also talk about pressure to peace. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Say that one more time.
Pressure to peace.
Pressure to peace.
Yeah, you were talking about how, in terms of basically how we can either pressure kids or we can actually be at peace with it. And it's kind of like,
I
yeah,
see.
it's because like I just feel like the force method just doesn't necessarily work because I mean, it works in the short term, but if you want to create long
Yeah.
lasting habits, I think that's another story.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Well,
Yeah.
there's a lot of nuance to that too, because like as we talked about, there's so many different root causes of picky eating, and if it is skill based or medically based or microbiome based, you know, and the child is struggling with their health or they're uncomfortable when they're eating or they don't have the skill to actually eat these foods and we're pressuring them to eat them, that's going to backfire big time. And I understand where these pressure tactics come from. They kind of like seem old school a little bit. And I think that when we were growing up, it was a little bit different too because there wasn't as much chronic disease. A lot of us as kids, we were healthier. And there's nuance to that too, like in terms of like where you grew up and what type of household you were in. But there was a lot less toxicity around us. It was just kind of a different world depending on when you were born. Maybe I'm aging myself, but I was born at the end of the 80s and then I grew up in the 90s. So it was a very different environment for me, at least growing up. So I think those pressure tactics, or maybe there was a little bit less disease back then in kids and definitely less picky eating. There's definitely a lot less symptoms. So now, because of the toxic load, a lot of kids just can't carry it. They're struggling so much. About 60% of kids, and that number is growing, now have a chronic disease of some sort, right? So when we kind of bypass that and just go straight to the behavior part, which is what I used to do, it can just backfire. Because yes, we can try and play some mind games and get the kids to behave in a certain way, but if there is any type of, any type of medical issues or anything going on in the background, or skill-based issues or sensory issues, it's going to be really hard to actually make lasting change in these children. And it can backfire, like you said, because then they can start to create different behaviors around that, where they're really going to be either scared of food, or they're going to have a lot of negative associations around food because they're being forced into it when they're struggling and they need help with these things, underlying issues that are driving picky eating first.
Absolutely. Yeah, something I've been contemplating is that I hear sometimes like people grow up in a really healthy home, they do all these healthy habits, but then they leave and they totally abandon everything and they get sick. And then that's how they get in the health and wellness industry. But
That
I
happens to a
don't
lot of
think that has
people.
to be like that. I mean, I want to get your thoughts on that, but like I think it's because of the
Yeah.
methods that we're using.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. And I also think, like, just, even when you go to a store, now you have to be very diligent to try and pick up healthy food in the store, right? Because majority of it, depending on what kind of supermarket you go to, but the mainstream supermarkets, you'll go in and you have just aisles of chips, you have aisles of cereals, the bigger box, the better deal. And it's just driving a disease. And of course, it's not only food based. There's a lot of toxicity in our environment. We're not getting enough sunlight within in our lives, and sunlight is actually the biggest tool for health, I believe, honestly, because it actually shifts the microbiome positively more than food. It helps with our mitochondrial health and sets the circadian rhythm. As humans, we were designed to thrive outside with sunlight. Electricity was only developed about 150 years ago. We have not evolved enough for that to be something that our body needs to thrive. This is a comfort thing. This is something that's amazing because we have light at night and we have warmth in the winter and we have AC in the summer. But these things are just tools developed for comfort. They were not developed to support our biology. So we are typically in our home that is very dysregulating to our bodies. And then you go outside and there's like the lawns are sprayed full of chemicals and you have, geoengineering and all that stuff being sprayed up on the top. And then you go into these stores and in these homes and there's microplastics everywhere. And I'm sounding a little bit dramatic, but that's the truth. So majority of homes, that's what they're like. So that's driving a lot of issues in us and in our kids, because our kids they're not able to process it as well. They're still growing, they're developing, they're little, their brains are very plastic, yes, but we need to give them the right type of environment and support for them to develop, appropriately, and for them to develop in a healthy way.
Definitely. That makes a lot of sense. Like cultivating that sense of peace within us and bringing that to the home. So it's like you kind of cultivate the garden in a sense, where you can like cultivate your mind and things like that, as you can actually
Yeah.
make sound decisions, right? Instead of like being in the state of chaos.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And there's so many different things you can do at home, little things to make it less toxic and healthier for your body and for the body of your children and anybody who lives at the house, because these things add up over time. If you think about it, you spend majority of your day either at home or at work. Like you're not really, unless you're really lucky, you're not working outside. Like you have to optimize your environment as much as you can.
Yeah. Just want to get in a little bit, like anything that really sticks out in terms of importance.
Absolutely. So I do think that minimizing non-native EMFs. So that's really the first thing. So if you have Wi-Fi at home, if you can hardwire it, that's amazing. So that's a form of non-visible light that is very disruptive to our bodies, especially the bodies of developing children, right? Because they're growing, they need more energy, and they're so much more susceptible to these things, to these toxic things at home. So hardwiring your internet, if you can't do that, at least trying to keep it away from like the bed, so that you don't have a Wi-Fi router by your children's bed if you can. And if not, like you can get like one of these like automatic what do you call it, like plugins, like plugs that you can plug in, and you can actually turn off your Wi-Fi every night. You can set the times when it turns off, when it turns on, so you don't have to worry about unplugging it every single night, because that's another thing to add to your to-do list, and that can feel like a lot. So there's so many different things to minimize that, because that is a form of light that is very dysregulating to our body. Another one is trying to avoid blue light as much as possible, and we are surrounded by it from our screens, from TVs, from phones, from everywhere else, and blue light is it is part of the sunlight spectrum, but it is never present by itself. It's always accompanied by red and infrared light outside, as well as UVB light, UVA light. So it's never in isolation. And what we have done is we have taken the blue light and isolated it and put it all over our house. So that can't be good for us. So we want to try and minimize it as much as we can. And if you have to use it at night, try and wear blue light blocking glasses. Try to cover as much of your body because your skin is also a receptor. And especially in a winter, it is important, I think, to live cyclically. So going with the season, right? In the winter, light goes down, the sunlight goes down like very much sooner than in the summer. So the sunset happens around, like, depending on the region, like 5 p.m., 4:30 p.m. in the winter. And normally, before the invention of electricity, people would have gone to sleep, right? Because that's the time to go to sleep. And in the winter, we would get more sleep. And it was more time of eating less and just going more internally and resting until the summer, when there was more sunlight and more energy and more things to do. So things like that to keep in mind. And I know that's really hard to do in today's day and age because you have to go to work. You have the same schedule all year round, and you can't really adjust to that type of schedule, but as much as you can. So changing your light environment, wearing those glasses once the sun goes down so you can protect yourself from the light is really important. Changing your lights at home if you can. So going from LED lights, which have a lot of flicker, they're very dysregulating to your body, you can purchase like warm lights or incandescent lights and light bulbs to exchange the lights so that they're actually more supportive of your biology, and they're not flickering, and they're not really disruptive. They're not full of blue light. So there's so many different companies now coming out with different light sources. So many of them that are just phenomenal when it comes to lighting. So even as simple as switching out your light bulbs, even in just your bedroom, so you can have red light at night, or in your living area where you spend majority of your day, maybe in those rooms, so you don't, because it could get expensive if you want to do your whole house. But even in these like key areas, that's already going to support your biology. And there's just so many more things you could do. But I could talk about this for hours. But this is at least the light piece, which I think is so important.
Absolutely. That is some great information there. I mean, as you mentioned, like, there's so many things that we get into with that. But just being able to think about these things, just bring awareness to it so we can start to make these small decisions, right? It's not about being perfect, but progress, or making these small decisions so we can actually see improvement in our lives.
Oh, definitely. And you can see improvements almost right away, especially in kids. Like, it's quick. It's quick. If something is really negatively impacting them, they change so quickly that you can see a lot of progress by making these little switches at home.
Yeah, because we're really impacting our biology at a whole other level. Because a lot of us, we just think of nutrition and exercise, which of course is super important, but we don't really think about these other things, as you just mentioned, and they could be potentially just as important. So.
Yeah, it sometimes, if not more, because like I said, studies show that the light environment impacts the microbiome more than food, and it's not a huge difference. I think it's like 51 to 49%, but still. And the missing piece I didn't mention, which is like the OG of it all, is going outside and being in the sun, right? Like, you cannot stimulate the real thing as much as we want to get, and they're helpful, like red light panels and things like that at home to help us get some of the goodness of the light at home. But like, just going outside first thing in the morning, it's going to set you up for your body, for your circadian rhythm to function properly, to start producing the right type of hormones. It lowers oxidative stress. It's just so beneficial. So being outside first thing in the morning, even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's 15 minutes, it's amazing. Then in the summer, going out midday, trying to get your stomach exposed, the area under your knees, because that helps to produce POMC. But that is so important because you're exposing yourself to UVB light, which has been demonized for so long. But UVB light is really what produces vitamin D. And we're all notoriously low in vitamin D. And no matter how much you're going to supplement with vitamin D, you're not going to move the needle the way that you will with the sun. It's really what stimulates vitamin D production. Supplements fall short all the time. That and then UVA light is just so many different light spectrums outside that we cannot get inside. And our body actually, it's been shown that our body, when it's constantly inside and it's not going out, not exposed to the sun, it thinks that it's at war. Literally, that's what's been shown in the studies, that's what it sees. This is the type of stress that you start to feel within your body when you're just not in the sunlight. So I think that's pretty significant.
Absolutely. I mean, I've said this many times, but the number one thing I do for my own health is actually getting outside in nature, as you mentioned, earthing, getting that fresh air, that sunlight, and just getting your mind right. I mean, because we do so many different things in terms of biohacks, but a lot of it just kind of like mimics what we do in nature.
Yeah.
And it's so important to get that real thing for sure.
So important. Yeah, and practice gratitude and all these like basic things. They can be so life changing.
I mean, it's all about the fundamentals, really. Just
Yeah.
basing our practice on what is actually real, and then of course we can do the fancy things, but we have to master the fundamentals for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You mentioned POMC. I'm not actually familiar with that.
Yeah, I'm not going to be the best person to explain it, to be honest, but it's like a pre-hormone, precursor to many different hormonal productions. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Alexis Cohen. She is the perfect person to learn all about the light stuff and geek out with. Like, that's her bread and butter. Like,
Awesome.
this is who I learn about about it from. And I'm probably not going to be able to explain it as well. But yeah, it's like a pre-hormone, super hormone. It's like a precursor. And the only way to produce it is when your belly is actually exposed or the area underneath under your knees. That's the skin receptors that are actually able to produce it. So
Very interesting.
yeah. So that's why, like, yes, being in the sun is great, but you want to be also conscious about how to expose yourself to it, you know? Honestly,
sure.
like, the less clothing, the better. So they even have these, like, tan-through suits that you can buy in the summer. So you can actually have a suit, but it's like, it allows the UVB and UVA rays through. So you can actually have the benefits on your entire body.
Awesome. Yeah. There's so
Yeah.
many different devices, like for the wintertime, like photobiomodulation and red light therapy. All those are great as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. Especially if you
Yeah.
can't get the real thing, it's good to have that light exposure.
100%.
Yeah.
So you also talk about the Bloom method. I would love for you to get into that and all that entails and how that can help people today.
Yeah, so my Bloom framework is something that I developed after I went through that very severe picky eating phase with my son. And actually, I I knew what I was doing, but I didn't have like a straight path forward or guidance. And then one day it was weird. It was at night. I was laying down at night, and it all kind of like came to me. It was like a download almost, where all of a sudden I'm like, these are the areas. This is exactly what I need to target. Kind of like putting it all together, things that I've been thinking about for a while and learning about, but it all kind of came to me in this like form of framework. It was kind of wild how that happened. It didn't download as a Bloom, but it downloaded as like the components of it, and then I kind of like put it together so it had this like nice acronym. Yeah, but stands for balanced health, right? So we're looking at, again, making sure that there's not any like medical diagnoses underneath, or like medical issues or nutritional deficiencies, anything that could be negatively impacting our health. That will go under balanced health. Like, so in order for us to be an adventurous eater, or for our child to be a curious eater, we want to get them to that state of balanced health as much as possible. And it's not always possible to fully get there, but at least be on that path of balanced health. It's really important. So whether they're struggling with constipation, whether they're struggling with any type of digestive issues, whether it's pans and pandas, whether it's, FPIEs, it could be a lot of things going on that are driving issues with picky eating. And we want to make sure that we're looking at it from that lens. Then L is learned oral motor skills. So looking again at oral motor skills and making sure that they're able to chew their food properly. They're able to swallow it properly without any issues. So if there is any type of problems with that, we would want to help them from that lens. And usually that's the work done by speech language pathologists or occupational therapists. They will be the ones to help you with that type of work, as well as the medical team, especially when it comes to swallowing issues, right? Because that could be pretty serious. The first O is optimal microbiome. So again, microbiome, working on gut health, trying to heal leaky gut, any type of gut dysbiosis, introducing foods that are very nurturing to the gut, and trying to withhold foods that are really creating all these types of cravings and feeding the bad bacteria in your body. So getting out in the sun, because again, that impacts the microbiome more than food does itself. So those are some areas that you would want to address when it comes to optimal microbiome. And then depending on who you're working with when it comes to picky eating, ideally it's a team, right? Like you have perhaps me, somebody who's going to look at it from this root cause umbrella, but you want to be working with integrated pediatrician if you can. So you can do all types of testing if you need to for gut health, for blood work, to look at nutritional deficiencies, just to see what's really going on. Because yes, we can treat the symptoms, of course, but oftentimes knowing exactly what the child's deficient in is very helpful in order to supplement correctly. So that's the O. The second O is open exploration. So making sure that you're exposing them to foods in a way that's not threatening, that is exciting, that is explorative. So maybe the child is not ready to have broccoli on their plate. Maybe you have to go back to the garden first and look at how it grows. Maybe you have to go to the supermarket and look at the broccoli there first before you can even touch it. It depends on the child, and depending on their preferences, depending on the level of fear they have developed around certain things. There could be a lot of anxiety around food. So you want to set up the environment that is really nurturing to them and exciting, and giving them an environment where they can really thrive with the food. And it doesn't mean necessarily just taking bites. That's kind of the last thing, right? Sometimes you have to move back a lot of different levels to see where you really need to start. So you can introduce this from that way. And it doesn't mean, sorry, it doesn't mean that you're going to be working at the supermarket and just going shopping every day and then they're just looking at broccoli. The progression could be fast, but it's just kind of eliminating these fears and that taboo around food, that it's a way to get them to start eating. And the last one is mealtime boundaries. Again, setting boundaries, eliminating snacking, or keeping it to a very specific schedule every single day. So you have time in between meals and they're not snacking on chips before you put out your beautiful dinner, right? Because they're not going to want to eat it if they just had a bag of chips or whatever it was, or all these cookies, because they're not going to be willing to eat it. Their stomachs, their tummies, they're very small. So you want to make sure you're giving them enough time so they can digest, they can rest. You're also telling them, this is what we're doing tonight. We're all sitting together at the table. I love family style meals. I love those where the child has some autonomy over what they're going to put on their own plate. So maybe you'll have tapas style, right? Maybe you'll have I don't know, grilled chicken on this plate, and then pasta on this plate, and then cabbage on this plate, and they're going to serve or put as much as they want on their plate, right? Still using this explorative way with food, but interacting with it in a very positive way. Maybe they're going to serve it on your plate first so that you can try it. They can see you eat it, right? And you have this modeling component there. But I think having boundaries around by the table, and really setting rules as to how we're going to eat, when we're going to eat, having a schedule, especially initially, I think it's really important, because kids really thrive on routine and it's helpful to them. They know what to expect. We thrive on routine. It would be great if we ate meals at the same time every single day, because our body will be able to digest it and expect it. And it's really good for us, and it's definitely good for kids.
Absolutely. I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course. Yeah. I'm glad it resonates. And then one thing I didn't add though is with the Bloom framework, I imagine it, because I'm saying Bloom, like kind of like a tree or like a beautiful flower. Because when we give our kids the tools that they need and the support that they need, they can really bloom. But at the root there is connection and nervous system regulation. It really is. Like we want our kids to be in this place of rest and digest, not fight or flight, right? Because if they're constantly stressed out about different things, it doesn't have to be around food, but they're bringing that type of energy to the table, it's going to be really hard for them to eat and regulate. So that's why we want to do a few things, especially when things are stressful or you're running behind or trying to get dinner on the table or breakfast, whatever it is, like trying to connect with them, take a moment of connection, just so that their nervous system can regulate. Have them breathe with you, give them a hug, talk to them, play with them, whatever it is. I really do think that once we start to connect with our kids, help their nervous system regulate, and we start to really understand them from that angle and pay attention to what's triggering to them, we can really help them tremendously.
Absolutely, I love that. And it's awesome how you came up with it. It's like that's how mastery takes place in a sense. Like you have all this knowledge that you accumulated and put it into practice, and then you get this download. I think that's really cool.
It was kind of wild. It was kind of wild. I remember like I was going to sleep and I was like, oh my God. And then I like got out of bed, like wrote it all down. And then the next day I started to work on it. But it was just this moment of clarity. It just came through. I don't know if it was, a message from God or whatever you believe. I'm a big believer in God or whatever it was. Not to say this is God's work, but just saying, like, I feel like we have these messages, and once we are able to intuitively tune in, it can be really life-changing. It's just, sometimes it's just important to listen.
Absolutely. Very important aspect there.
Yeah.
And then also mention like regulation again, like just being able to kind of create harmony, right? That's what it's really about. Just being able to kind of connect thoughts and just like if a problem comes up, being able to solve it efficiently and just being able to kind of stay in the flow of things. That's kind of what it sounds like as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And in a way that's not overwhelming for the family, because it can feel like so much when you're already dealing with, having a kid or multiple kids and work, and especially for moms. And I'm a mom, so I can relate to that. I don't know what type of kind of struggles dads go through. Everybody has their own struggle and their own roles, but especially for moms, like they're the manager of the house. They're the ones who are usually the first person the kid is seeking out if they're having any type of issues. It's like mommy, mommy, mommy. So it can feel like so much. So I don't want you to think, if you're a mom who have a picky eater, I don't want you to think that, you have to add on 20 new tasks to your to-do list and manage all these new things for your child to get better, because it doesn't have to be that way. It could be a few little shifts here and there. These moments of connection, these moments of noticing what your child is really, or what their body is trying to tell you, and just prioritizing going on walks together outside, especially when it's light out, and trying to have more foods. And that's hard sometimes for picky eaters, but even introducing a little bit of like, I love the Gap soup. I think it's so good, which is a meat stock based soup. It's very healing to the gut. And like even introducing like a little bit of that into something that they're already eating. So you're introducing these types of good type of foods that are very nurturing to the gut. It could be so many different things. Maybe turning off the Wi-Fi at night. And it's little things that add up, right? And then eventually you're creating this like just much healthier environment that can be life-changing. They really can be.
Absolutely. Because you said it can be a lot for sure. But if we just focus on these small wins every single day and have goals in mind. So it's like, yeah, I'm aware of all these things I can do, but what is going to move the needle? Just focus on that and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah, exactly. And things that don't disrupt your family. Because if it's something that you feel like is going to completely disrupt your flow, it's going to be really hard to do. And it might be a negative thing that you bring into your life. Like you don't want that. You want to pick things that are healthy and they feel easy. It could be things like airing out your house once a day for 10 minutes, right? Just open up the windows to air out some of the the toxins that have accumulated in the air. Maybe it's getting a water filter that is filtering your water and giving you good quality water that you later put some minerals in. It could be one thing that you do once, and it's going to make changes for days or months to come, because with a filter it's usually long term, or getting an air filter, kind of like an air doctor or something like that, that's also going to last. It's kind of like you make this one big shift and then it's going to last for months, and you don't have to think about it, it's just there. Or it could be little things that you can do daily, right? And I don't want you to feel like it's overwhelming and too expensive at once. I think just if it feels that way, just go outside as much as you can. Make that your priority. You're going to have so many benefits just from that.
Yeah, just give yourself the space to think, right? Just kind of
Yeah.
like, just relax, just think about things and just contemplate. And that's where like the magic takes place and the creativity.
Oh, yeah. You have any problem you can't solve? Go outside. Like, go on a walk. See what you're going to come up with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, is there any like myths that come up for you when it comes to picky eating and things that we should
Yeah.
probably avoid?
Yeah. So there's, I think, a lot of myths surrounding picky eating. One of them is being they're going to grow out of it. And that can happen sometimes because toddlers can go through, or infants even, they can go through a picky period and then they kind of abandon that and they go back to eating. It could happen, but 25% of kids, and that number is growing, so 1 in 4 is a true picky eater. So their chances are things are happening that are really long term. So I don't want you to just think right away, abandon it. They're going to grow out of it. You want to look for signs of any type of discomfort, or talk to a pediatrician, and hopefully they have a more of an integrative mind or outlook on things, because they can really guide you. But that's definitely one of the most common myths that I hear. It's like they're gonna grow out of it. It's just not a big deal. Just let it go. And oftentimes, parents wait. They wait a few months, they wait a few years, and they're not growing out of it. And at that point, we have set some like serious habits in place. So it's definitely something that I really don't love hearing, because I think there's so much we can do. Like I said, we talked a lot about some things that we can do around the home to change, that can be so positive when it comes to our children's health and their picky eating tendencies. So I would hate to not be able to do that or help all children this way just because we're waiting for them to one day wake up and not be picky anymore. So that's definitely the main one that comes to mind for me. There's definitely a lot more, but I'm trying to think of any, but this is the main one that came to mind right now.
Yeah, it makes sense. Just giving it a process, right? Because we just kind of rush
Yeah.
things, as we mentioned, but just being able to stay focused on what actually matters, and just not being overwhelmed, and just just having a sense of relaxation, as you mentioned, is so key. So I'm glad you mentioned that too.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's all connected. That's like the biggest lesson I want everybody to take away from this. It's all connected. If you're seeing any type of symptoms of picky eating or something, there is a reason for it. It's not, it could be that, the child is going through a developmental jump of some sort. And yes, maybe they're in that time not wanting to eat a variety of foods, but usually it's all connected. There is something causing it.
100%. It's all connected for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Lena, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you
Thank
so much
you.
for coming on, sharing your story with us, all your insights. You have so much knowledge in this, and it's such an important
Thank
topic, just
you.
being able to kind of cultivate a healthy foundation for the future, right? And having so much important tactics. I really liked how we went to having a healthy home. That's really, where it all starts. And just being able to focus on all things. It's not just like health is one thing, but being able to incorporate that and just focusing on the small wins. And as you see the wellness in your own life, and that will kind of inspire you to keep on going and get more inspiration and get more change. And it comes as a virtuous circle that we can all kind of feed off of in a sense. So
Oh, for sure. Well, thank you for this great conversation. You had amazing questions, and I think we went somewhat deep into some of these things, and I hope that it was helpful to whoever was listening. And just know there's always an answer. Like it's what I love about this approach is that you can make changes with almost any type of diagnosis, because I don't love the messaging behind like this is how your child is wired and this is how they're going to be for the rest of their lives. You can always make positive changes within their home environment, within their diet, within the nervous system regulation piece, so many different areas that are going to have a positive impact on anybody. So I think this is just basic information that should be out there for everyone to get.
100%. So if people want to get connected with you and all your work, where can we find you?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's lenalivinsky.com. So you have access to my podcast, my blog, a bunch of different freebies there. My programs, everything is there. And then I have the Live in Sky podcast where I share stories and strategies and conversations with guests to help you understand your child's body, biology, and behavior in a whole new way, kind of like what we talked about today. It's a mixture of solo episodes and some guest interviews. And then I'm most active on Instagram at lena.livinsky, so you can definitely find me there.
Awesome. Appreciate it so much. And it was awesome having you.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.